joining. Thank you for being back. Second part, we're going to be talking a little bit about the wonderful history of Dr. Luna and some of his incredible stories. Okay. So enjoy.
Okay, before I talk about the phenomenology, it's the first time I do this, that I present my own story, okay? So I never dared to do it. But since I'm going to talk about the phenomenology, it would be good to at least you to know who is the person who's having this thing. So okay, I'm Colombian. I was born here in Florencia, in the eastern slope of the Andes. This is the Amazon. And so when I was born, my town, I mean this is much later, but we had no electricity, no running water, no cars. It was just like the Wild West, just free for the horse. And my area is was one of the most beautiful, because in the eastern slope of the Andes you have the so-called montaña, with tremendous diversity, biodiversity. But unfortunately, like in many other areas, this has been transformed into pastures. Great part. So just to have an idea about the alienation, this was until recently the emblem of Florencia, where I was born. Look at this, and it's just incredible. I mean, access, like we saw in the first part, the saints hugging the trees. Laurel leaves, had nothing to do with us. These are Mediterranean. Indian cow, palm from the Caribbean. I mean, it's absolutely total alienation. Okay, but when I was about 5, my parents went to Bogota. I went to the Piaris Fathers in Bogota, and then I said something to my mother, and about I like this priest, said, oh, I'm going to give you to God, So I was sent to a seminar. I was some more years in Florencia, back in Florencia, and I was sent to a seminar in Bogota. Here I am, about 14, 15. And then I studied 2 years of philosophy, and then in Colombia, and then I was sent to Spain, to northern Spain, to ERIE, where I studied 1 year of theology. So I have this background. When I left the place, when I was the monastery, when I was 20 years. So I had that little background, and but then everything changed. It was in 1971, after 7 years away from Colombia. I studied in Spain. Then I went back for holidays to see my parents in Florencia. And then I saw this gringo who was trying to order something in terrible Spanish with his girlfriend. And I said the magic word that changed my life. May I help you? So Terence had just been in La Chorrera. He was writing the Invisible Landscape. He told me about Viaje, and then he was going to Bogota. From there he was going to Peru, and then I went to my home and told my father that I met this gringo who had looking for Viaje, and then he said, tell him that he doesn't need to go anywhere. Viaje is right here, and he said the Apolinar that I knew since I was a child. He knows about Viaje. So he went to Bogota, grabbed and bought some books, and went back to Florencia. This is Dennis. These photos were taken just a few months before I met him. And then, this is my mother years later, but in this house, in our little country house, Terence wrote the Invisible Landscape, or part of it. So in fact, I was helping him to the quantification of the time wave zero and things like that. And for me, it was just incredible, because it was he was 2 months, 2.5 months. And the only thing we did was walk in the pastures around the place where we were about 14 kilometers from Florencia, looking for mushrooms. I was very lucky that we didn't find the mushrooms, because I was not prepared for that. I saw the mushrooms when I was about to take an airplane to Bogota, and I saw them growing in the pastures at the airport. But I did have, and it's but I don't care because I wrote about that for the first time. But I had my very first experience with cannabis, with Colombian gold. You know, it was Terence had this. He had bought in Cali or I don't know where. So I left the seminar, went to Madrid to study. I became. I was converted to a new religion, militant atheism, and that joint that Terence gave me completely demolished my atheism. I had a mystical experience, and then later on we had for him and for me the first time our first yahe experience through a German who had the best restaurant in town. Don Apolinar had given him some yahe, and so we got it from him, and he and a Hungarian called Carmen, and then Erika, Terence's girlfriend at the time. So we took it, we took yahe, and for me it was a revelation. Terence didn't feel anything; he was just throwing up, and he was furious. Furious with me. Anyway, in 1973, I came to this area. I went to Berkeley to see him, and at the time, this was the only publications available on yahe, the yahe letters, Burroughs and Ginsberg. And this book had just came out, Hallucinations and Shamanism, Michael Harner, and this is practically an anthology about yahe or ayahuasca. You know, there are several chapters on this, and then this book also came out, Peter Ford's Flesh of the Gods, which is really a perfect introduction if you are interested in the plants, because these are written chapters by the greatest specialists in each of these plants. And then this book came in Berkeley that year also, in North Atlantic Books, Bruce Lamb, Wizard of the Upper Amazon. Some of you probably have read it. It's a very literary, very beautiful description, and he was absolutely attacked furiously by Carneiro, an anthropologist who had been with, I don't remember what was the name of the tribe he's describing, because Manuel Córdoba Rios, in this book, he claimed that he was kidnapped by Unicui. Okay, Unicui, and then there with them he had learned about ayahuasca and all that. Carneiro said, "Oh no, this is not this tribe," and he was attacked furiously. But later on, I understood that what Manuel was saying was a power story. You know, very often, I mean, if he had said, like one of my teachers said, "Oh, I learned at the bottom of a lake, and my teacher was an anaconda." So no problem, huh? No problem. You know, everybody okay. But now he said, you know, by this tribe and all that, of course, big problem, because we are using completely two different categories. And what he was saying is a power story, which is works, because a patient goes there, he has the fame, he will learn with the Indian, they will help also in the healing process. You know, because you trust this person because of his knowledge and his story. This book also came out, this came a little bit earlier, Amazonian Cosmos by Rachel Dolmatov, and it's the first time that an anthropologist recognized. Pardon?
Somebody else.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
You were speaking in the microphone?
Wow. Is your Syrian? Hey.
It was just like some voice from heaven. Okay, so Rachel Dolmatov was the first one who realized the importance of Kapi in this culture. He realized that everything, I mean, the mythology, the cosmology, the iconography, the narratives, everything was about the other world, the world of they enter with Kapi. Okay, so I was, of course, fascinated in Berkeley, and then read this book, and I wrote to Rachel Dolmatov. And incredibly, he answered. And then he wrote me a letter, and he wrote this paragraph that changed my life in a way, you know, because he said, "You express the hope that science is beginning to unite its links." I don't know what I said. You know, I'm sorry not to be able to share this optimism. In many academic circles, the theme of other potential forms of consciousness, of other realities, is not always considered a legitimate field for scientific investigation. And to a certain extent, this precaution is justified because these themes lend themselves to a great deal of speculation that lack all seriousness. You will excuse me if I give you some sincere advice. I think that you should dedicate yourself for some years to a very rigid scientific discipline to acquire a foundation that will allow you later to concern yourself with the theme of your interest, without falling into the confusion that unfortunately are so frequent in this field. I'm referring to studies of biology, botany, biochemistry, pharmacology, or similar field. Although such a study may be long and difficult, I think it will offer you the indispensable base to be able to understand those aspects of cultural human conduct that are so interesting. And I followed his advice. So at that time I had moved to Norway, and it took me 1 year just to pass the examination in mathematics. I had completely forgotten everything. So it took 1 year to pass the examination. I forgot it again, so I don't remember anything about mathematics. But anyway, and I took some courses in chemistry, organic chemistry, astronomy. I was thinking, what can I learn in order to be able to try to understand what happened to me in 1971. In 1979, I went back. Again, 7 years passed without going back to Colombia. I went back, I thought that I got a job in Finland. In Norway, I was teaching paid by the hour. I was teaching literature, Latin American and Spanish literature. But in Finland, I got a job as a Spanish teacher, and I was paid during the summertime. So my first salary, I went to South America, went Brazil, Argentina, traveled, and at the end of my holidays went back to see Apolinar. 7 years earlier, we had tried with Terence to go to see him, but it was raining and you have to walk through the forest, and we needed a guide. It was impossible. But 7 years later, we were able to, with my brother, we were able to take a bus. Not nice bus, a bus of kind, and we got there, and then I asked Don Apolinar, I've been waiting 7 years for this moment. He said, okay, you can wait some more months. No. I asked him for Yahe, so, and he said, no way, it was just like that, some guy came, we wanted to be Yahe. So I went to the little town and talked to his son, Roberto, who was a drunkard, but there were the mushrooms growing there. And I thought, okay, well, the mushroom, if I cannot, hey, let's take the mushrooms with my brother. So we took the mushrooms, Roberto, blessed them, and then, but I still, Yahe. So at some point I said, let's go back to talk to Apolinar, already under the effects of the mushrooms. We have to cross I don't know if I have a photograph here. No, I don't. I have to cross a bridge, and then I see coming down the river. It was coming. What I saw, it was a snake. I said, it's impossible, huge snake. And I thought, I'm hallucinating, of course, And then I look at my brother. His eyes were popping out, so it was indeed a snake. So I had been taken by the current and trying to get out. And with this idea, I went to Apolinar, and again I asked him for the Yahe. And he said, we have no torches for the battery, we have no candles. I said, don't worry, we just run back to the town, bought this, went back, and then I had my second Yahe experience, in which I became a serpent, and I was able to see through the roof, and well, I wrote about that in ayahuasca vision. So I thought, I go back. I thought that I needed to learn with Apolinar. He said, okay, if you really want to learn, you have to come here, you have to stay with me, take Yahe every night for 40 nights, and then Yahe will come. But when I met Apolinar, he was already very old. He was depressed because the colonists had come to his land, had destroyed his plantation of different ayahuasca, Yahes, different Yahes. So anyway, I promised to go back the next summer, and I thought even to make a film about him, and I was thinking of to have the feet as leitmotif, barefooted, sandals, and his son and his wife, and then tennis shoes, and I thought to make a film about 3 generations, how knowledge is being lost in a way. So, but then he died. My father wrote me that he had died. I came here to Occidental to see Terence, and Terence told me, go to Iquitos. I was there last year, Apparently there is a very interesting tradition of ayahuasca. He gave me 3 names, and I went to look for one of them. It was Emilio Andrade Gomez, who became my teacher, through the years. So I met Don Emilio. I explained that I wanted to make a film, and he said, "Okay, let's do it." I'm very poor. I have poor resources. I have this Bolex camera. I have a Sony recorder, no sync sound, and 1 hour 45 minutes of 16mm film. But anyway, I was using the so-called the Preloran method. Jorge Preloran was an Argentinian filmmaker who did many anthropological films. And Margaret Lee used to say that he was the best anthropological filmmaker. He was the head of the Los Angeles school, film school in UCLA. So I had gone to see him, and he said, "Okay, if you want to do a film with this material, you have to concentrate on one person. So record in the evenings when it's quiet, with the same volume, and then you have your finger in the pause button, and then let him talk. As soon as he's telling things that you know that you are not going to use, you press the button, don't say anything. As soon as he's talking about his life, about spirit, about this and that, that is very important material, so you record that. The thing is that I recorded about 30 hours of material. And the other thing, the Proloran said, you have to transcribe the next day, not wait, not gather material. And so immediately, the next day, during the day, transcribing, and then in the evening, I went to record more. It was like that during 2 months. I was doing this, and the film, you can see it in YouTube, Don Emilio and his little doctors, you can see it. The subtitles were done by somebody. I didn't put this film there, so the subtitles are so, but anyway, you can see it. Okay. So I recorded how ayahuasca is prepared, and then, of course, I was interested in his ideas about healing, collecting plants, and so on. So what I realized is that I had a huge manuscript, which I saw the seed of the doctoral dissertation. And so I went back several times during the summertime, meeting different ayahuasqueros, recording Icaros. I have quite a nice collection in cassettes and all that, but with Susana we have to put it together, to digitize all that. Different ayahuasqueros. And sometimes I was using this method, of course with permission. I let the microphone there, went for a walk, and let them talk. And these conversations, these dialogue, were precious, And of course I realized, as you know, how syncretic is this tradition in Peru is. You have they're using the pipes with the sculptures of with the images of the tobacco, but you have also Jesus, Mary, and then you have even Buddha here, and so anything which is interesting, I put it there. Even when I was there, even they have this idea of getting power from different sources, and some ayahuasqueros even put some acid from the car, from the battery, and put it there, and so that you have the power of the motor. And then realize as well the iconography, the spirits. There were angels, there were soldiers, there were helicopters, there were, all sorts of things, in the imagery. Certainly, Brabec de Mori and Peter Go before him, he noticed how perhaps some of these gestures of the vegetalistas are influenced by the missionaries, and we don't know really the origin of this particular vegetalista tradition. We know that in the oldest ceremonies that we have records of, made by Rafael Carsten in the Shuar, and by Irving Goldman among the Cubeo in Colombia, they describe big collective ceremonies with torches and all that. So I think that this is probably the oldest way. So there were collective ceremonies, and shamanism, with few people, it's like another kind, much more intimate. But okay. So these are several of the other ayahuasqueros I met. By the way, I thought, what can I give him, for his time and all that? So I bought a new hammock. Thank you very much. Put it there and went back to his old hammock. Okay, so Don Emilio then introduced me to other ayahuasqueros. I was interested in the process of learning, because they said that you have to take this brew, you go in isolation, you keep the diet and all that, and I was curious about what is happening, you know. So I convinced Don Emilio's son and a neighbor, 18-year-old kids, to go with Jose Corral and keep the diet. I will keep the diet as well, but I will make a film about them having the diet and the process. But they gave up. You know, they put salt in the food. You know, after 12 days, and so at the end I was the only one who was doing the diet. You know, I could not film myself. You know, so that film never came. But anyway, Don Jose Corral allowed me to be in his place. Usually, I mean, the real, you should be in isolation in the forest. But Don Jose could not be with me anywhere. He had patients. So he had two women, Donna Rosa, who had terrible arthritis, and she was cured of her arthritis. She was taken by her sons to this place, but she went out walking. So and at some point I thought, I'm going to change the theme of the film, but this I didn't have enough material. And again, very small, you know, I then had 2 hours of 60mm film. So, and this Doña Dominga, she had cancer, and Don Jose complained that they took her too late, and she died, in fact, 1 or 2 weeks after I left. Anyway, I was learning during this time the process, how not only Don Jose was singing and using nettles and other plants for them, but he was doing also dream analysis, you know, in a way. Every morning he has, you know, what were your dreams about, you know, as the little lady, and he was thinking also of his own dreams, you know. And I remember one night that he was just like shouting, and he said that he told me in the morning that he had been fighting with the person who had given the illness to one of the ladies. As you know, in the Amazon, illness is always caused by an animated agent. So, but even if it is a snake, you know, somebody will send the snake, you know. Okay, so then I spent some time, 1 month again, in the Segundo Valley, in the Putumayo, in Colombia, Putumayo. I was with Salvador Chindoy. Schultes had been working with him, and then more time with his son, Miguel Chindoy. And I was then collecting plants and seeing how they were putting the plants, if there was any kind of system. And Miguel Chindoy had this man who was a mestizo, he was not a Kamsa, and when we were talking about this garden, he said something, he said, El Jardín de la Ciencia, the garden of science. You know? So wow, so the garden is the garden of science. I got again and again this idea. Don Emilio told me, ayahuasca is a teacher, and these are all the teachers, you know. So this is Miguel Chindoy. And then Jean-Pierre Chomel, he wrote about the Yagua shamanism, and he also came to the same conclusion among the Yagua. They say that the plants are the only path of knowledge. Jean-Pierre wrote, of course, in French, L'unique chemin de la connaissance. And I had gathered all this material, and I wrote my doctoral dissertation. Okay, Hulkans in Stockholm allowed me to teach her, and it was in '86 I defended the dissertation without going one single lesson in comparative religion. But I defended the thesis. Then I have to be 3 years going back and forth from Helsinki. I was living in Helsinki to Stockholm to talk to the teachers. I have to read so many thousand pages. 3 months later I went back, and it was like that in '89. Then I got my doctoral dissertation, and it's very pompous, in Stockholm, the same place where people get the Nobel Prize. Okay, I have to mention a very dear friend. It was Schultes. Schultes. He was like a father for me. He opened his home. I was spending sometimes weeks in his library. He introduced me to many people, and as you know, Schultes is behind, practically all the botanists, Wade Davis and Timothy Plowman, of course, Mark Plotkin, Stephen King, myself, so he has been like the author of this, and his role, very important, collaborating with Shulgin as well, but Gordon Wasson and the others, Peter Foss and the others. Okay, thanks to Schultes, I got a Guggenheim Fellowship. It was the only time that I got some money for my research. And then I was able to spend some time in the Shipibo. And this was, he was my teacher, Don Basilio Gordon. And, okay, I forgot. When I was with Jose Corral, what did I learn about there? And one of the things that I realized is that I was having a lot of lucid dreams. And then during the day, of taking ayahuasca quite frequently, you are in a kind in keeping the diet, you are in a kind of, in two worlds. So I realized that I was like almost, almost dreaming during the day and awake during my dreams. And I mentioned this to Jose Corral. He said, now you see, you are learning. So there is something there about the lucid dreaming. When I was here with Don Basilio, I took my press and I was interested in collecting plants. And then he was not using any plants. And I said, Don Basilio, what plant do you use? And he said, if you know the song of the plant, you don't need the plant. So the ceremonies were just singing. And my role was to drink with him, try to sing with him, and just be there. Not easy. This was during the rainy season, millions of mosquitoes, and I was, all my experiences were on the ground, miserable frogs. It was Belada, and Don Basilio just looking at me and just smiling, and he knew that I was going through all that. Okay, so, I was keeping the diet, but in fact the whole community was not only keeping the diet, but they were at the edge of starvation because there was no food. The only thing available there was manioc. There was nothing else. They don't grow any fruits. And then from time to time, it was the rainy season. It was difficult to get fish, so. But then later on, with an Ashaninka, I was able to do a short time. The thing, the real thing is to be isolated in a tambo, and he came. This is Don Pascual, my teacher. This is Ashaninka that came for a visit. So I was there in the hammock, and my role was just to observe things around me, and every time he came, he was almost angry with me, saying, only one thought, un solo pensamiento, only one thought. He said that my mind was dispersed, that I have only one thought, concentrate, And one of the things that he showed me, I was not taking ayahuasca in this case. I was interested in Toé and Gurmancia. And he said, okay, well, that's a very difficult plant. If you want to learn about this, you have to go step by step. You have to first take a mixture of psychotria and tobacco as a paste, very unpleasant. But then at some point, he was offered a job, good money, and he said, I'm sorry, and so I was not able to go through the Toé experience. Then in '85, I met Pablo Amaringo through Dennis. I asked Pablo, suddenly, I realized that he knew a lot about the plants, the different plant teachers and so on. I said, why do you know this? Oh, I have been an ayahuasquero, but I have not taken ayahuasca for 7 years. Showed me some landscapes that he had made in cheap paper with aquarels. And I had, I asked him, then I noticed that he had a very good memory, eidetic memory, so he's able to record very well what he has seen. And I asked him, he told me, I remember everything I have seen. So he said, do you remember your visions? I said, yes, please, So this was the very first vision, Pablo Amaringo. So this is the seed from a lot of his work, and then of course from many other artists that have been influenced by Pablo. He gave me this, he gave Dennis another one, and then I took a photocopy, and then I asked him, what is this, what is this, what is this? And then came a description. I mean, I don't show it to you, the whole thing, you know, but anyway, so suddenly I realized that it was a gold mine for an anthropologist, because it was not only, he was not only able to tell me about the spirit, but he was, you know, how they looked to him. So we collaborated for several years. He made, while I was with him, I mean, working with him and for him, about over 200 paintings. Some of them, 49 of these paintings, are in the ayahuasca visions that was published in Berkeley by North Atlantic Books. At the same time, a kid, this one, Dennis, a kid who was living with Pablo, and he started to do landscapes, and then came another kid, and then came Anderson de Bernardi. He was 18 years old at the time. And then I said, Pablo, I mean, this is like a school of painting. Let's create a school of painting. So June 15, 1998, we declared the School of Painting open. And then I started to work several years for this project. I think that I from 88 to 94, I think. And then I had full dedication to this project. We started with few students, and then we ended up having 300 students. And all it was for free, and the materials were free, and I was organizing exhibitions in many different countries, even collective paintings like this one. This was bought by the Barnekunst Museum, the Child Museum in Oslo, and so on. Okay, so in 1994, it was too heavy for me, and problems. Always, when you have development projects, when there is no money, no problems. When there is money, you really the problems, you know. So I don't tell the story, but anyway, in 1994, I said, okay, Pablo, I'm sorry, I cannot work anymore. You know, I was killing myself because I was doing a lot of work. I mean, photographing and writing and making exhibition and all that. But it was a good learning for me. Not only, I mean, I learned about how the world of galleries and museums, and everybody wants 50%, and it's just horrible, you know. I mean, just, you know, so. And so in 1994, then I went to Brazil first as a visiting professor, and then as a professor in anthropology. And then it was my opportunity to learn about the Brazilian phenomenon. And there were already quite several master theses about Maestro Raimundo Irineo Serra, the Santo Daime, that you know. There were several, but nothing about the second one, Daniel Pereira de Matos. They call it the Barquinha. So I realized that no anthropologist had done anything, so I dedicated several years, I mean 3 years I think, but mostly 1992, very much, sorry, 1994 or 95, to study the Barquinha, and I did the first publication about Barquinha ever. And then I did some field work, I mean, you know, with members of the UDV, and I wrote in Portuguese, so it's not available in English, a comparative study about Barquinha in UDV. But for me it was, I mean, every time that I was working, I was participating in the ceremonies. I mean, so learn different things from the different. And this is a ceremony that took place in Mapia, in the spiritual center of the Santo Daime. I was traveling with a member of the UDV, and then they participated in the ceremonies, and Arley made a UDV ceremony there, you know, which was very interesting because I had never seen it, and so on. Okay. But then this was Barquinha, not the main one, but it's one of the smaller ones, and it was for me that I had been studying to be a priest. Suddenly I found myself again, you know, how is it possible, you know, I'm again in the church, with Mary and Jesus and San Francisco and this and that, but now under the effects of ayahuasca. And okay, I mean, of course I was able to tap into a little bit about the iconography, the imagination, you know, but I also had with this some of the most strange experiences. Remember, once I was in the church, eyes closed, very bright light, and then I saw this being. I had a video camera with me, and this being is coming and touching my video camera, and you know. So I mean, this looks like, you know, real. Yeah, it didn't look like so. So I will talk about those things later. But anyway, so barquilla, and then the barquilla, they play drum. I mean, they are 4 hours in the church meditating and with prayers, hymns, and so on. Then they go out and they have the dances in the terreiro, in which they incorporate the spirits, and that's also very interesting because I was interviewing a lot of the mediums, and they are able to sustain two different selves, you know. So they are themselves, but at the same time they are this or that spirit, you know, the preto bello, the black slave, or the spirit of the child, or the spirit of a princess, or so on. So very interesting what is happening there. I was participating, of course, in the dances and so on. And then I also went to the UDV. They invited me to I mean, I asked permission to study. I had the idea to study power in the UDV, and they said yes. I think that they didn't realize, you know, what is to study power, because I was studying the mythology, of course, and then other things which are much more tricky is what are the money costs, you know, distribution and hierarchies and all that. So until at some point you say, I'm sorry, you know, no, and so I was not able to continue working. But anyway, I learned certain things, you know, in the UDV sessions. You're sitting in comfortable chairs, and then the mestre is speaking and giving some lessons, and in all the churches, all of them, they have lights on, you know, completely different from the mestizo ayahuasquero or the indigenous. Well, not the collective dances are with lights, with torches, but the more intimate ayahuasqueros ceremonies are in the dark. So here is with the lights on, and they put great emphasis in the light. All the churches is going to the lights, which is almost the opposite of the some Amazonian tradition, in which the power is down, is in the underworld, you know, subaquatic, where you have to go down and then come back, you know. So, but the UDV has something very interesting, which is the secreto da palabra. They call it the secret of the word, in which they. When they talk ritually, very slowly, and they put positive words to cover the negative words, and so they have a certain discipline to talk, and they talk very eloquently. And some of these members, you know, a taxi driver, spoke so beautifully in the sessions, you know. So really, they also mastering other kinds of techniques, you know. There's something that I realized that ayahuasca can be used in many different ways, and so you can develop in different ways. Okay, this is Jose Gabriel da Costa. One of the things that they do in the UDV is that when you are under the effects of ayahuasca, they tell you stories. The stories which are transmitted only orally. They are not written down. And when you are under the effects and you hear the story of the origin of ayahuasca, somehow it's very easy to imagine, to see. You know, you hear the voice, and you know, you see the tree, you see the entities, you know, doing. So, but I realized that the same thing happens among some indigenous cultures, like among the Vacuna. It was Stephen Hugh Jones, who was the head of the anthropology department of Cambridge University. He was a good friend. He told me that in the ceremonies, especially when the kids reach puberty, then the older shaman, even without taking yahe or kapi, he will be reciting the spiritual geography, and the kids under the effects of yahe, they will be able to see, you know. And Else Lagru, a Belgian anthropologist who lived in Florianopolis, now is in Rio, she said that one of her informants told her, you have to remember a myth before you drink the brew. If you concentrate well on the story and its being will appear to you in vision, and you will understand the meaning this story has for your own life and experiences. You will feel the story, you will live it. So I think that here we have tremendous possibilities. Okay, let me see. No, I'm going to back to the imagery a little later. But anyway, I think that we have possibilities because this is another way that ayahuasca could be used. And I will be interested to see physiological correlates as well, you know. I think that for architects, for artists, for nearly anything, you know, if you are able to project your mind, I will come to that in my own, with my own experiences. Okay. And one of the things that I realized that I made a very terrible mistake because I concentrated on the vegetalista tradition in Peru, and I completely neglected what was happening on the other side of the border. And I just discovered one person who was a vegetalista in the Brazilian tradition, who had songs very similar to those of the UDV, but who I never heard about the UDV. He knew about Cayano, which is the main figures in the UDV, and so too late for me, and I didn't have the possibilities to work, but the Brazilian vegetalista tradition, you know, is gone. You know, I don't know if anybody is still following the tradition because the churches then absorbed all these people who were doing this. They were absorbed by it. Okay, then I was 4.5 years in Florianopolis. I was married to a Finnish woman. We had 2 boys and a girl. The marriage dissolved. She went back to Finland with the kids, and I could not be in Florianopolis, you know, following an academic career and having my kids on the other side of the world. So I gave up my job, went back to Finland to teach again Spanish and Spanish history and literature. But then I had bought a piece of land, and I had this idea of creating a place, you know, a center, you know. It was fantasy, but somehow it materialized with the years, and so now we have been working with my wife Adriana, Brazilian, 16 years. We have seminars, interdisciplinary seminars, mostly think tanks, you know, where people from many different disciplines come together and to our place, and we have 2-week seminars there. Okay, so, and we have been gathering plants. We have now over 400 species of plants, many of the sacred plants from Africa, Australia, South America, North America, and so on, and then a lot of fruit trees. We have a reforestation project going on there, so. Okay, now I'm going to talk about experiences. You know. So all of us, I mean, everybody has taken ayahuasca, I suppose, or not. Who has not taken ayahuasca? Okay. All right. So I'm talking mostly veterans. You know. So we all know that we take the brew, and even we have even with eyes open, you see changes. Very often it happens to me. This is a painting by a friend of mine, Antarmicos, Brazilian, with these indigenous patterns on the body of a woman. I have seen these, you know, patterns, you know, with eyes open. And my wife, you know, something is like painted, and the Siona India, they said that the facial painting, it is the experiences they have, you know, to see the spirits or see the projection. So this is something that happens very often. The other thing that happens is when everything is like first day of creation, like Huxley used to say. Everything is completely new. Everything is alive. Go to the toilet and the faucet is alive. The toilet is looking at me. Big mouth, and you know, so it's suddenly everything is animated. And then all these beings, you see all these beings, and this is Alex Gray, one of his self-portraits. It's called Spongel. And so, what are all these beings? And you know, this idea of being alone, that we are the only intelligent species on this planet, sounds so completely ridiculous when you are going to these places, because suddenly everything is animated, you know. And then you see all these beings, and they are talking to you. So I remember once I asked him, but where are you? Thinking, what dimension or whatever. No, the answer, right here. We are right here. And who are you? And then, we are you. In this state, that answer is just very strange. You are, we are you. So, okay. So, I started to do, many years, experiments. Like, when I'm seeing these visions, if I move my head, does the vision come with me or not? So it's like a projection or not? And very often it is like that, but sometimes you are in the three-dimensional space, where you can see up and down, and you see that, sometimes I've seen, for instance, a serpent coming slowly, and then coming behind me and coming on the other side. Clearly, it's just like, it's three-dimensional. You're into the three-dimensional space. How is the space in front of me? How many parts? Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's different, like this or like that. So I'm thinking, and what about distances and all that? So it's interesting to see. For instance, very often, and many people have said that you have like four-dimensional feeling of four-dimensionality. There is one more space, one more dimension in the scene you see. And sometimes are coming from lattices. It's just like another thing which is coming out. So, how sharp is what you see, and how stable? Is it changing rapidly or not? Sometimes it's changing very slowly. Sometimes it seems to be quite stable. Sharp. I've been thinking that, okay, in our normal vision, we have foveal and periphery vision. And our foveal vision is just very tiny, and we just see, and then we construct this reality. But you close your eyes and immediately you're lost. You only remember a few things. And both visions, both the foveal and the periphery, are extremely important. And of course, they are mediated by the iris, by the cornea, and so on. But in this state, you are having this directly. It's not mediated by anything. Everything is sharp. So perhaps this is one of the factors that makes that this vision sometimes seem more real than this reality, because everything is so sharp, so present, just right there. Now, can I move within space? Sometimes I'm just there, I'm able just to focus a little bit, but I'm like stable. But other times it's just like I'm able to travel. You go zoom in into one place, and then I zoom in again and again and again, and sometimes it's infinite. Just until I'm just tired of going to different places. It's just like, okay, it's enough. I open my eyes because, so it's forever. Can I zoom in or not? Yeah, okay. And does my position, laying or sitting, changes the experience? Yeah. And I noticed, one thing is to be sitting. When you're laying down, for me, everything changes. And then the vision, they become often like sort of honey, thick honey, which is coming, and then sometimes they come with different colors, and of course we have the tendency always to go to the bright colors, because the dark colors we are associated with, somehow the dark places. But I realize that this is just bias, and very often when I see that what I'm seeing is more or less the same, but with different colors. In one experience maybe more orange, another experience more blue, another experience, different, but basically the patterns are very often the same, but the color is like another layer. And you may or not put meaning into that. I try not to put meaning into that. Often, so not to be, okay, I think this is the dark place, etc. Not just to see it as if it was blue or white. See, what I'm seeing. Very often, it seems that the trip is pre-programmed. I'm not able to move like sometimes I'm able to move there, but sometimes it is like pre-programmed. It's just taking me. It's still going to this place, even if I try to go somewhere else. No, it is taking me there and there and there and there, just like a lesson. Okay, now I want to. One of the things I told you about the Macuna, having imagery among the Macuna. Often it happens that I go to a world which I've seen many times. It's kind of boring. I've been there before and I don't see anything new. And then I started to do experiments like, okay, I'm going to do something in this world. So I think the concept flower, flower. Suddenly, boom, one flower out, one flower here. But I cannot know what flower is coming, what color. It's just like that. Water, and then, and birds and this and that. And so suddenly it's animated, but I'm thinking of that. And as soon as I don't make any efforts, it dissolves, it goes back. So I have to, have the active imagination, and especially, and this is especially so in the afterglow, not during the very big, when you're coming down. In this situation, you can do a lot of experiments, and okay, I will come to the co-creation thing later. Benny Shannon, whom I admire very much, his book, Antipodes of the Mind, is a great work of phenomenology, cognitive phenomenology. But there are some things in which I do not agree with him. People never see the same vision twice. No one has ever reported a case that comes with generalization. This is not the case, and it is clear it is not the case because in certain indigenous cultures, they know, tonight we are going to the second heaven on the third river, and there are songs for that. So Jean Landon, she writes, the Yahé experience is not one of individual random visions or free association of the unconscious while under the drug's influence. It is rather an ordering of the induced visions into cultural, meaningful symbols and experiences, those gaining increasing control over the visions and events occurring. So there is they know how to navigate, within their cosmology. Without that repetition, things like this, will not exist. Pablo had a precise cosmology. I could ask him again and again, and he will tell me, okay, these spirits live there. So he had a whole cosmovision. So I'm going to tell some of the elements that repeat again and again in my visions. So the city, I see it very, very often. So this city I know more or less, when I see very often, for instance, a lake, gray lake, and I know that there are some fish there, sometimes snakes, sometimes alligators, and there are people there, and so I know I'm in that space now. Sometimes I'm at the border, very often into the border of this city, and I see green on the other side, and I've been trying to get out, but I'm not able, and other beings are there also trying to get out, or up, and trying to get to a tower, and we are not able to get out, and so, so I've had many times, or seen a city with boats and greetings, and so sometimes I've been in that city and I have to go, I have to open my eyes and say, okay, goodbye, we'll see again. But I've never repeated, I was talking with this, about this with Susana, it has never happened to me that the same being will come again and again. I have no friend on the other side that say, okay, I'm here. Yes?
So, every single time you have an experience, you're learning something new, am I correct?
Yeah, yes.
So you're not the same person that you were when you started doing this?
No, of course, there is a development, yeah, and it changes quite a lot. I'll come to that. Okay, so very often I see these beings coming to me and giving me presents that I don't understand, but very, very often, they show me these things, and sometimes, I have to choose, but I don't know what to choose because I don't know what is the criteria, why I should use this or that, so, and sometimes I've been thinking, okay, I probably will come later. very often I'm in this world, and then I get bored of being in this world. I say, okay, I'm sorry, I would like to go somewhere. I say, oh no, please stay, and make also those things that I will stay, like trying to get me there, and then suddenly open, and I go into another world, they're doing the same thing, stay here, show me things, and so I've been able to move like horizontally into many different worlds. This way much more difficult. By the way, I'm a specialist in underworld. I do not go so often in the skies, just, in horrible places and all that. Don Emilio once told me that you should not eat or drink in the spirit world because then you are stuck there. So systematically, I don't accept. But so many times they come with drinks and food and chocolate of all sorts, and eat, drink, and again and again. I mean, through the years, So I'm just laughing, because trying to do all the tricks, so that I will drink, but they know that I will not drink. Yeah. Or tricks like, okay, I know that you're not going to drink, but salud, skull, to see if I will be tempted to drink as well, and so on. I mean, okay, mirrors. I go to these places and these beings come to me, sometimes very, very close, and I'm wondering, what do they see in me? What are they looking at? And I got this feeling that there's like some kind of, there's like some kind of glass or something. They are there because they cannot come too close. And so I've been trying to find in the other world mirrors, a mirror to see how do I look in there. And has been for years all these tricks with the mirror. I see a mirror, I go there, but it's in the wrong direction. I go there and then it disappears, or but always the mirrors, but never been able to see myself in the mirrors. Okay, ants from the very beginning, a lot of ants, and I was wondering what are they, what is their function, and then sometimes I thought, okay, perhaps they are like invading this world, or sometimes they are protecting this world, or I've been trying to get out of the city and then I follow the ants, inside to see if I'm able to get to the other side, but I never managed to. And I mean, in so many different ways, or some of the decorations of this other world are like imprinted made by the ants, or sometimes the ants, these other beings are having these ants like, hanging, like decorations in the world, and so on. So again and again. Sometimes, now, thanks God, I have not been there for a long time. It's what I call the cockroach world, which is so boring. It's just, like little things, and again and again, and there is no meaning to that. Attacks has happened that I see these tentacles and like an octopus and coming, and in the beginning I was a little concerned, so I said, okay, this is an attack, so I have to hum or something or sing so that to repel the attack. But gradually I'm just letting it happen. And now lately, just okay, okay, come, and they may come around me, and that's okay. I'm not afraid. Other times I try to communicate with them, and I see these kind of monsters, and then I do like that. So they are perplexed, and suddenly they start to do like that, and I say, feel it here. And then I said, yes, and then again, okay, three, it takes some time, but, or I was telling you about the flowers in the water, it's much more difficult to make something like a cat, trying to make a cat in this world, and then you see just the mustache here, there. And I remember once that I was really trying to do a cat, and I gave up, and then at some point, a cat went by very quickly, Yeah.
Your mic.
You accidentally turned off
Your mic, yeah.
Hello?
Yep.
Yes? Okay, so now I've been thinking about what is happening here. And I think that what happens is that if in a vision, let's say, I put attention to a certain element, then it's more likely that it will appear again. And the more you look at it and think of it, the more it will appear. Sometimes even I'm in a vision, And I remember the ants. Where are the ants? They will appear. You know. So I think that I'm reinforcing with my attention, I'm reinforcing that will happen. And so I realized that I will be able very easily also to create an idiosyncratic world. You know, I am constructing that world. You know, by paying attention, you know, into this or that. You know, so, and it will be my world. Now, what is the independent? You know, because that is always the problem. What is their existence? You know, what is the ontological reality? Are they out there? They are communicating with me, or it is part of me? Or this question comes again and again to everyone who does ayahuasca or other plants. You know, what is the reality of this? And I'm coming to the conclusion that it's like an interface of some sort. It is your world. You are creating it, but there is also information which is coming from somewhere. Could be in the brain, could be outside, it depends on our ideas of consciousness. And then this interface is creating this world. And the more you do it, then you create it. So the other thing is that Benny talks about, what about dreams and visions? And he says that the distribution of contents in ayahuasca visions and dreams are quite different with almost no overlap. Dreams are personal. They reflect the dreamer's concern, conflicts, and wishes, while ayahuasca visions have little to do with the drinker's individual lives, depicting otherworldly and phantasmagoric motifs. I don't agree with that either, because very often scenes from the normal world appear in my visions. I mean, my dog is now dead, you know, appear very often, you know. So I'm in a vision, suddenly I see Catita, you know, inside. Or remember once Dennis was visiting and we went to it was Carnival and he was dancing there and taking a lot of pictures, and in the next session there was Dennis also taking pictures in my visions. So, or seeing other people. So again, this comes in. So it is not that it's completely separated. And for people who work with hypnagogy, you know, very often these hypnagogic figures they see before you get sleep is very similar, not so colorful, but somehow they are there. And the answer, how is it that we don't see plant transformation? I think it's because we cannot recognize, you know, another unless we have somehow it is anthropomorphic. This is in Cosmo and Alex Allison's project in New York, upstate New York, and I don't remember the name of the artist. You know. Anyway, so I was thinking that this idea that we have of the human exceptionalism, that we are created in the image of God. Of course, it's just completely the other way around. You know, we make God in the image of ourselves. You know, so it's, you know, I have to put this in reverse. You know, and perhaps tilt it. You know. That's what we have done. And then we don't recognize that we belong in the web of life. I found this on the internet. You know. And of course, it has to be white, you know.
It's called
Well,
echo. There is a second picture. It's called echo.
I see. Okay. But in the Amazonian indigenous world, we are completely in another kind of we are not alone. We are not exceptional. We are just one in the web of life. There are many other people. So even though Jose Colar, once I was preparing ayahuasca, and then we were looking at the. Okay, looking at the bubbles coming out of the pot, and he was saying, these are people. So in this world, everything is intelligent, everything is alive. We are just one among the many other persona. I've been in touch recently with this Luis Delia. I never met him personally, but he is working on his doctoral dissertation at Oxford University, and he writes, plants are considered, he's working in the French Guyana. Plants are considered to have personhood, have soul that can be detached from the physical component of the plant, which of course remain rooted in the earth, in order to roam the tripartite cosmos. as powerful agents. Plants can move, speak, protect, even kill. In this sense, as I came to understand, plants are or can be volitional subjects occupying phenomenal perspectives on the world. And now he's not working with psychoactive plant, he's working with manioc. And in the French Guiana, some of these communities have up to 600 varieties of manioc, because they are not collecting this manioc, different kinds of manioc, because of the nutritional value, which is, follows the same, but it's because these are different people. So, just some ideas, because I could go talk forever, but one of the things, we talk about shamanic transformation, and it seems that a lot of the healing process in the Amazon is like transferring properties from the animal world to the patient. This is a case, I took it from the internet, this photograph, but once a vegetalista was curing a baby who had very weak legs, and he was then bringing the spirit of the armadillo, who has very strong legs, so that to transfer the strength to the boy. So it's transferring properties. In a way, shamanism is about transformation, about, if the patient loses his soul and goes to the sky, he has been transformed into a bird to bring back the soul. Or if it is on the underwater well, become a fish. But there is this kind of transference. And in the Amazon, many of these societies, the idea of personhood transcends the shape, the form. So the same persona can be human being, or they can change skin. They can have another skin and change into others. And also the spirits can also change skin and manifest themselves in different ways. Okay, so Jeremy Narby, a very good friend, he said that in my view, the perspectives of science and indigenous knowledge could both be true at the same time, and could even be combined to produce a deeper understanding of the living world. And in fact, this is what is happening. Some incredible publications are coming. Probably some of you know this brilliant Green. He is an Italian biologist. He wrote this book. You can read it in 2 days, showing how the plants have 15 different senses. Our senses, the 5 senses that we have, that they are able to even feel gravity, feel different kind of nutrients. It's just incredible. And because we think in terms, we are organic, different organs, but the plants are modular, so that you have the same, like thousands of brains, in the roots, because each of them behaving like a brain and communicating with other plants and so on. And some of the ideas that I mentioned in the beginning, I mentioned just Aristotle, but out from this book, Plants as Persons, a very interesting a book about how different cultures consider plants. This is a book that I just bought recently. I'm completely fascinated. It was published in German, now it came in English, The Hidden Life of Trees. We have this idea of trees, like the tree, that tree, and that this shows that we can not think of terms of trees, but in terms of forests, because the trees are communicating with each other, and sometimes they are parenting also. A sick tree may get nutrients from other trees, sometimes even from other species, because it is in their benefit that the whole forest will be healthy. So it's just, it completely dissolves our ideas. And even Ed Frechtel, he sent me this paper, that even it goes down into the cells, the cognitive cell, bacterial behavior reconsidered. Really incredible. So we begin to see scientists, biologists are begin to recognize also consciousness in the animal world, in the animal, in the biological world. I need some. Okay. So it all depends on our ideas of what consciousness is. And I was very happy to find this quote from William James, one of the greatest American psychologists, reflecting about, what consciousness is. And we have accepted the productive theory of consciousness, that somehow consciousness is a product of the brain. It's a byproduct of the brain. And versus a pre-existent consciousness, the brain molding it in various forms. Consciousness does not have to be generated de novo in a vast number of places. It exists already behind the scenes. Interesting, William James saying these ideas that now begin to be more, you begin to see it more and more, panpsychism, animism, and so on. So, as you know, Descartes, he divided everything into two: rex cogitans, and then rex extensa, which you measure. And we have the dualism. But I think that there is something in between, which I call it res fantastica, which is this interplay between me and something that comes from outside, and we are co-creating this. But this is as real as this, why would we say, simply because we cannot show it to others, this doesn't mean that it's not real. I think that we have another reality here as well. Okay, so, I think at the moment, it's okay, and I take questions.
Thank you. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. Please speak really loudly too. Gentleman in the back, sir.
Okay. So you said don't eat or drink while you're having the dishes. Does that mean you can trigger your sense of taste?
No. Okay, I was thinking about that, and if you begin to see the mythologies of many cultures, you have the same idea. Have you seen this film by this Japanese filmmaker, Spirited Away?
Yeah.
You have that idea as well. When in the classical mythology, when Persephone goes down, the same thing. You find. Have you seen this Spanish film? Yes, Found of Labyrinth. You have the same thing in many different cultures. So I don't know. I detect that, but I'm not taking chances.
What is the Spanish film called?
Faust. No, not Faust. Faun's Labyrinth. El laberinto del fauno. Yeah, Faun's Labyrinth. Okay. Sorry.
I have two questions.
Okay.
First one is about the serpent symbol.
Yeah.
For me, it's very meaningful, and I don't know why. And I've seen a lot of many pictures inspired by ayahuasca.
Yeah, well, the serpents are not negative at all. I think that I show you a painting by Pablo Marino with the three serpents: the mother of the forest, Sachamama; the mother of the water, Yakumama; the mother of the sky, Wairamama; and for instance, the Kashinawa, the Kashinawa, or the Unikuni, they call themselves the Unikuni. They said that in the Shipibo as well, they said that all the visions are in the skin of the serpent. So it's not at all negative. What at all? Not at all. So, and very often, even I think you have all seen this TED talk by Graham Hancock. He was in a home. A serpent came and he was taking it like a baby. And this idea of mother ayahuasca, that by the way, in some other cultures is father ayahuasca, not always. Yeah, okay, Susana, you have it.
Yeah, I was.
You have a second question.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask what you think about Iboga.
About,
Iboga.
I have no experience. I was in a Iboga conference lately, it took a little bit, but I have not been. Years ago, I even went to the embassy, Gabon embassy in London, asking for a visa, paid for it. They said they are going to send it to Pretoria. I was in South Africa, never arrived, I never went, and so I never taken it. Yeah. Okay.
I was curious about the case of humor in your phenomenology.
Absolutely, humor, absolutely. Yes, sometimes I see these patterns, then I see there's nobody here, then so then they appear, yes, a lot of humor.
I would add that into your list.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yes, they have a good sense of humor. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it here.
So, it was mentioned earlier that if someone with a child never will be the same as before. You said you would be.
No, well, I mean.
My question is, what is reality? Since it gets all mixed up, and what if it's the illusion of you thinking it's towards the positive, but it could be negative? Like, this is just the mind is crazy.
If you solve the problem, please. So that is always the big question. Philosophical, what is reality? Yeah.
Here's a question.
Yes.
About ego. I met a couple of people that have done it before.
Yes.
That use spiritual to decorate their ego.
They use it.
To decorate their ego. I feel like they were more self-centered than before. And it kind of scared me to get
Okay, I can say something about that, because it's the dangers of ayahuasca.
What was the question?
Ego.
About the ego. People who after taking it, they become more ego-centered or.
kind of scared, like.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. People ask me about the dangers of ayahuasca. From the point of view of physiology, if you have high blood pressure, it is dangerous because the DMT may increase your blood pressure, so it is not good. If you have an ulcer, ayahuasca is acidic, it may increase your ulcer, but there are no big problems, physiological problems. It is not toxic. We have DMT in our systems. We have pinolene, so no problem. Okay. Psychologically, okay, I would not recommend for people who have narcissists. That's one of the things. Very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
Narcissistic personality is really terrible because they become even more narcissistic. It's me, it's not about me. I'm a chosen. Ayahuasca told me, now I know, I have the power, I can do it. So the power inflation, that is the greatest. But they know, Don Emilio was telling me, be careful with this because when you're taking ayahuasca, the spirits first come and they give you a lot of things, and they give you the power to do harm. You cannot accept that. Yeah, you cannot accept that because if you get tricked into that, then you become, a sorcerer. And for your own profit, and not hidden. And the other thing, of course, a lot of people get this power thing, and then they begin to abuse power with money, sex, etc., like in many of them. So that's something that one has to take into consideration. It's not. Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Listening to your experiences, it sounded like you create the world you're going, and also that you seem stuck, seeing always the same pattern again and again.
Okay.
Do you still receive some healing or teaching out of this experience?
Yes. Okay. For some years, in fact, I was going again and again to very similar places, and I was just worried. And I was using different kind of models. What is happening? It is that somehow the chemicals are metabolized in the same way, and it goes into the same neural system, and so I'm not get out, just go again and again. So, what if it's some psychological thing? What if I'm stuck into some kind of problem that I cannot solve, and I go back again and again? So these are the things. The problem with me is that I was not able, I have been very many years away from the Amazon, and all my teachers are dead. So I was not able to ask Don Emilio, or Don Jose Corrado, they're all dead. So I have no, but of course I have to also think the possibility that is also some kind of shamanic thing, you know. But anyway, I got out, you know. Sometimes I go back again, but it's developing. It's developing. I mean, in fact, because I wrote about this for the first time in the new edition of Ayahuasca Reader, so in writing it, I've been paying more attention to it, and now my experiences are also changing character. So and Benny Shannon said that it's like lessons, you know. You are getting lessons, and you're moving and you're learning, you know. So and there's no end to it. There's no end to it. I mean, I've taken ayahuasca, I mean, since 71 the first time, 79, and then very often. And, I mean, I cannot say now I know. No way. I mean, always apprentice, you know. And new lessons, new things, you know, that you never realize. You know. Okay.
Have you had personal experience with guiding particular plants influencing your ayahuasca experience?
Yeah, okay, I have to confess my ignorance, you know, because I have only taken yahe, ayahuasca, yahe and ayahuasca with toe, with mancia, and then once with another plant. But, you know, so I'm just like my teacher, just an ayahuascaito, nothing else, you know. So that's my experiences. I have not pursued this, and I think that for me it's enough at the moment, you know, just with this. You know.
Some of those are like non-psychoactive.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Like for instance, Curupita guianensis, the cannonball tree, is not psychoactive, but still they put it in the brew, and they say that it changes character.
Yeah, my experience is different ayahuasca brews produce different kinds of visions.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what kinds of beings do you interact with? And have you seen spirits? Have you seen like human spirits walking around and coming to you?
Of all sorts. I mean, it's a whole zoo there. so you know, yeah. And the other thing is that, very interesting, when you are in the experience, I have the tendency to think of them as anthropomorphic. But when I get out of the experience and I try to remember what happened, then I don't recognize them. You know, what was there? Remember once that I went to a place and in order to get there, they had to scan me, you know, and it was just like a DNA scan and all this in order to get to this world. And I go to this world, and these beings were moving hyperdimensionally, just boop, 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 you know, just like that, but not showing up, you know, just, you know, they were moving like we walk, they moved like that, you know. So I was in this world, and when I came out of the world, I was trying to remember what did I see. There was just this little animal with hair, you know. So but in my experience, they were anthropomorphic. But out of that, it was this, you know. And so very often this happens, you know. Or I can see a spirit in the vision. When I try to get it back, the memory, just get like parts of it, you know. It's not the whole, it's not, yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
What advice would you give about integration?
Integration, extremely important, and that is one of the things that ERIE is doing, you know, because very often it happens, you know, that somebody comes here, you have a weekend, you have a big experience, and then suddenly, you know, you're wondering, because it changes you. I mean, the thing is that the greatest change is you begin to see that reality is much more complicated than we thought, you know. So you begin to question everything. You know? And of course, if you don't have anybody to talk to, or you can be quite isolated, you know. So therefore, you know, what you are doing here, Larry, I think is very, very important, that you have this kind of circles in which you can talk, you know, because somehow answers you are not going to get for anybody. I mean, in this business for many years, I have no answer. I mean, I don't know what it's all about, really. I mean, to tell the truth, you know. It's just very mysterious. It simply is just, you know, yeah, ineffable in many cases.
If you are a thinker, like really bad thinker, and personality, is it possible that you can go crazy?
That's what you think. When you are in the experience, I used to say, there are two things that when you are in the experience you think about. I'm going to be crazy, I'm never coming back, I'm going to lose it completely. Okay, that's quite typical. The second one, I'm going to die. I'm really going to die. I'm not going to make it. You know, but you know.
You come out of it.
Yeah. Yes. Of course. Again, you know, you need some good support, and very often, you know, it's very good to work with a therapist. You know, you may need a therapist really after some of these experiences.
Who knows about it, right? Sure.
Well, better if he knows, but certainly, I mean, yeah.
Have you had any insight into past lives? I have two questions.
Past lives?
And what are your views about death?
Yeah. I myself, never that I can see, for sure, you know. But I have had, I know people who can tell me, you know, like last night I have, you know, went for 14 different lives and describing, I was there, I was there, I was there. I don't know how to make it, and you have been transcribing reports from many different experiences. I mean, it's just so huge, you know. So, yeah, some people, I never.
And my second question was, what are your views about death after
About
death?
Okay, I think that one of the good things with ayahuasca is a good dress rehearsal show. Because you get there, you know, again and again, you know, and then it's good to be used to that, you know, because one day is coming, you know. So if you know that, okay, now you're better prepared, you know. I think that it's a good thing. And it's good to remember that, you know, memento mori, you know, remember that you're going to die. So, yeah.
Could you speak a little bit to the paradox of surrender? You're going through this intense moment. The last thing you want to do is surrender. You're resisting it, but then this surrender experience kind of brings you through, and then also maybe some tips or techniques, because I know some people that's a really difficult thing kind of process to work through.
I have, as a principle, never to open my eyes because I'm afraid. Whatever I see, I have to go through. You know, just, you know. Very often, what I do is, if it is threatening, is, okay, what can I learn from you? What can you teach me? You know, good, you know, instead of, you know, so be, and try to have this rapport with whatever is coming. And never open your eyes, not open your eyes because you are afraid, you know, because it's like defeat, you know. So you have some test, and then you go through it, and gradually you are learning, you know, to deal with this. That's the fear is the thing, and I think that a lot of the learning process is how to learn how to control your fear, because sometimes it's really, really very strange, you know, and so. And even it doesn't matter how many times you have done it, you know. Sometimes really something new is happening, and you have to, okay, go through it, you know, breathe slowly, because there is another thing that happens very often. When one is afraid, one has the tendency to hyperventilate and shallow breathing. So just remember to breathe slowly, you know, so that with your breathing you control, you know. And then of course if you're afraid and you have some good person leading the ceremonies, and ask for help. If it is a person with experience, will help you. Yes.
I go to meditation out in San Rafael, and I've had a few experiences of this one that sound very similar to what you're experiencing. When I'm not even there, meditation's over, days go by, usually a blue light will appear in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And some information gets pressed into my thinking that's not mine.
Mm-hmm.
Some new idea, some way that I could be thinking. Does that happen with you?
Yeah, it happens with ayahuasca, yeah. Even during the ceremonies, you know, sometimes the thoughts that you know, like come from
Some new understanding.
Yeah, new understanding, new insight. And so, in fact, I talk a lot about the visions, but perhaps the visions are not the most important. More the insights. The visions you may forget, you know, but the insights stay with you and change you, you know. If we just only concentrate on the visions, it's just like going to the cinema, you know, just one more film, you know, and that's it, you know, it doesn't affect your life. But these are the insights, much more important.
Have you made any friends with any of the entities that you've come in contact with?
If I have
Made some new friends with any of the entities that you've
No,
come in contact with?
I'm frustrated with that because it's not that nobody has come back again and say, I'm here again. No, it's always new. You know, some people say that they have their guardian spirits or the animal spirits. You know, I'm sorry to disappoint. No, I don't know if you ever will come. No, you know, no.
It's very difficult not to puke after.
Puke.
Yeah. Is there a key, I mean, pro-op?
Yeah, but there's no problem with
Is
that.
there a key up to it, or it's just?
Okay, I mean, the only thing that you have to do is try not to puke for an hour, so that the alcohol is absorbed. After that, if you puke, great. I mean, you know, there are indigenous cultures that they, every morning, they take Ilex Quayusa and they puke. It's like brushing your teeth, you know? So they, you know, no big deal, you know, you puke, you know.
I mean, plus like all three.
Okay, very often what happens is that because you are tense, you puke again and again and again, it never ends. But if you somehow relaxes and puke once or twice, that's it and done. But you know, that's no big deal. You know, in our culture we have this horror of puking, you know? It's no. Okay.
Anyone else?
All right.
Minutes?
One more.
You know, as far as navigating, your title for the talk, could you say something about how personal unconscious is in a dialogue with the collective unconscious, and how you feel about the work being individual versus emerging collectively?
Okay. Yeah. Let me see. I'm beginning to be tired. My brain is not functioning so well. Okay. Usually, I mean, some indigenous tribes they have a very beautiful metaphor when a group is taking, you know, the spirit canoe. You know, so that we are all in the spirit canoe. Everybody is doing their work, but still have this feeling, you know, that you are together with other people. So when you have to go through all these ordeals, you remember that, oh, you know, they're also going through the same thing, you know, or something similar. So, and very often it happens like sessions in which themes appear again and again. Somebody's talking about the father, another one like that, and things which are sometimes synchronicities which seems impossible. You know? I can just tell one. It was in the very beginning. I was invited to do the session, and I was very inexperienced years ago, and so there was an old man who was having a very difficult experience because Argentina, he was in Buenos Aires, because he started to remember his son, who was called Daniel, and he had been killed during the military period. He had been killed, and so all this came to him, and so I helped him. And by the way, you know, some things came to me, you know, how to deal with that. Okay. The next morning, we have a sharing, and so he said, it was a young man who was there present, who started to talk in the group. He said, addressed to him, he said, "Father, I'm very sorry. I didn't know what I was doing." He was called Daniel as well, and he completely got into the spirit of this other Daniel, and it was just like incredibly moving, you know, because miraculously, and then it was the father, you know, so it was just like these things happened, you know, in which you had no synchronicities of. These are very common, you know, so that's why. You know, what is the reality or not, you know, there's the mystery. Yeah.
Gentlemen over here, question?
Yeah, I'm curious, how do you navigate between...
How to navigate?
How do you navigate between like a sort of Western scientific model and approach to these things and sort of like respecting an indigenous shamanistic animistic?
Well, I mean, because I'm not indigenous, I don't know how they navigate, you know. I can only read, you know, but as far as I'm concerned, one of the things that I try to do is to, with my intention, to try to get into the space. Not just simply that it is there like a film, but just try with my intention to go inside the pattern. And very often, it's just like really going into some kind of material of some sort, you know. Remember that getting in some kind of glue and you're going through that and then going to another place, and so I think that the intention, you know, that's what moved you there in that space. As well, intention if you want to go back to, your childhood or something like that, which is sometimes amazing, that you are able to go back. I have been in my room when I was 7 years old. I have been in a place, when I was 12 years old, I could count the stairs. I was there, just I am able to go back into situations. But also, you can also use it the other way around, to project into the future. In fact, they said that you don't take ayahuasca to see the future, but you take ayahuasca to construct the future. So that, you are with your intention, you are doing that. And I like to think that the most important when we are planning our, is your vision. If your vision is strong, the universe will conspire to make it happen. It's just like your intention will make it happen. So intention is very crucial.
Speaking of intention, do you speak an intention out loud before each ceremony that you participate in?
You may or not. I mean, people have, there are so many different kinds of ceremonies. There's the beauty of it in a way. Even indigenous ceremonies are different. I mean, if we have to be traditionalists, I mean, you don't know, you get into the cubeo. The cubeo, the ceremonies take 3 days, and they take not only yahe, but they take snuff, and they your beer, and then they take a partner and go to the forest and have sex and come back and drink more and take another partner. I mean, I don't think that these are the kind of ceremonies that we can do here. But but there are many different. And the beauty of this is that somehow you are, and every person, I mean, adapting. We have the churches, we have the different traditions, we have therapists who are combining ayahuasca, with therapy. There are many possibilities.
But the plant understands what you want, yes.
Well, again, the plant understands, or what is, again, we are in the realm of mystery, So I try to. It's like having two horses, One scientific mind is taking me this way, the other one is taking me that way, and so try to, somehow, so.
Does that stress you?
Pardon me?
Would that stress you? Doesn't it?
No, it's very interesting. It's very interesting because you never get to, okay, now I know. It's just, so continue learning.
Watching.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.